Good evening. Hi, my name is Stefanetta Harmon, and thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of the MSR Bulletin. This is a small pop up from our normal MSR forefront where we can just touch on hot button pressing right now topics with the community. And tonight we're going to be talking just about community health in our Black communities right now. This past weekend, we had another young man, Black man, Dante Wright, shot by another white officer and killed on Sunday. And in the midst of a Derek Chauvin trial, literally, 10 miles away from Brooklyn Center to Minneapolis, it just feels like it's like one thing after another in our community. And I know me personally, like I read that news Monday morning and I was in tears for a young man that I don't even know, right? And talking to people all over the world and seeing the comments on Facebook and in the communities that we're just exhausted. Mm-hmm. We're watching the trial. We're seeing foolishness being shared. Like, so he died. They're saying that, Floyd died from what? Carbon monoxide instead of a knee taking his breath away. And so I just wanted to have this conversation with three, experts in our community right now to help us process this, to help us be able to see where do we go? Where do we talk through? How do we just go day by day right now? So we have Dr. Joi Lewis. How are you? Can you hear? Okay.
I can hear you. Yeah, I'm holding the contradiction, sis. It's
Okay.
Yeah, heartbreaking. Really
And
heartbreaking.
for those who don't know, Dr. Lewis, she is a life coach, a self-care expert, author of Healing the Act of Radical Self-Care. And she's actually taken time from her time off to jump in on this conversation. So grateful for her. Brother Sam Simmons, with all the letters behind his name, and consulting and dealing a lot with male trauma.
Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining. And Catrice Jackson, how you doing, Mama?
I'm doing all right. I'm maintaining and taking it one day at a time.
Thank you. And those who don't know her, she also has a lot of letters behind her name. I'm sorry, the LPCs and the licensed mental health practitioner. And she's also author of several books speaking on anti-racism. And so I just wanted to have a check-in.
I just want to pop in real quick to just say Sister Catrice had a new book that just launched today. So I want to lift that up today. Sister stepped out from her book launch today, a book about love. So I just want to lift that up for the sister, because she ain't gonna say, but I'm gonna say for her.
I feel like it's her third book since the last time we talked. Like
she be getting them out there, y'all. She be putting them out there.
Thank you, Dr. Joi.
Yeah, absolutely. And y'all can get it on Amazon today. So I'm just saying. Okay.
Well, since she went on ahead and pubbed the book, here's a little sample copy. It's
beautiful.
Let's talk about Black love, and so we need that right now. We need love on each other.
Absolutely.
We really do. Wow. I guess my first thing right now is we all woke up to the same news wherever we are. What's the feeling? What's the sentiment right now? Like, where are you and where are you feeling? What are you feeling? Who wants to start? Catrice?
Well, I'll start. You see my lips trembling. I kind of vacillate between grief and rage. There are some glimmers of hope in there. And then I have to be very intentional about creating moments of peace and joy and feeling safe and feeling comforted. But, I'm really kind of, somewhere between the levels of rage and grief. And I'm just trying to learn how to, channel that rage into power. And sometimes it's successful and sometimes I just rage.
Okay. saying?
Well, for me, I'm probably, a little anxious. I've done a fairly good job with myself not to get too stuck in the rage and or the sadness. I'm actually more worried about others than I am myself, right? Because I've been doing this work around trauma and that kind of stuff, and when you do this work around trauma, if you're really good at it, you start it on yourself. So so I'm managing myself fairly well, even though I've been called upon by others to address this. But I'm more concerned about others, my clients, people's responses to what's going on, their expectations, or in some cases, lack of expectations. Those extremes, right? I mean, I deal with my guys and how some people are responding to this. They're not responding to it at all. It's like, I got to go to work. I got to do what I got to do. If they're going to do what they're going to do. So, so there's many different emotions that I'm confronted with. So I just find it as much as possible to manage my space. And as you can see, I'm in my space and I'm been in this space for a year. And so, it's below ground, so I'm good.
He got a bunker over there, y'all. That's what he said. Sam said he got a bunker and he don't know where y'all at.
Right.
And find provisions. Okay.
You sound like you've been here before.
It seems like that's what we need right now, though. It almost feels like we all need bunkers at this point in time. Like like we need our own personal walking shelter.
Right.
That's right.
Well, the bunker is appropriate because sort of really where I am is that I am feeling really affirmed, if you will, in what I have been saying for years. And the validation of the places where the system wants you to think that we're crazy, and we're not. When it's like, we've been saying this, and that the fact that when there are shootings in the white community where folks go and shoot up the schools, when some white young man goes and shoot up the schools, and the Red Cross is brought in, and sandwiches are made, and everybody comes, and there's care and concern, and people are mobilized. But then whenever the police or the state kill Black and brown folks in our communities, then war is declared on our communities. So you actually need a bunker. And I wish that it was a joke, but it's not a joke. Because what happens is that then rubber bullets and real bullets and tear gas is actually brought into our communities. And then not only that happens, but then also schools are shut down, grocery stores are shut down, transportation is shut down, and a war zone is actually created. So war comes when we get killed, and when it happens in other communities, then actually there's care and concern that happens. And this is not like one time, this is every time. So we have to brace ourselves whenever there is a tragedy that happens in our community. It's not that relief comes, but that there's more tragedy and more trauma that actually comes. And so I wish that we had to be like, we didn't have to brace ourselves, but we like, oh, this is going to happen. So that what other tragedy is going to, literally we have to and then I'm hopeful, right? Because then I see like how we then gather to be able to become our own Red Cross, right? where we be like, okay, what you need, sis? You got this part, okay? Y'all got the hot food. You got this. You gonna make sure that people get together, and we do the things that the state and all the other people do that they do for everybody else, except for the people who look like us. So I'm also hopeful about how we get each other, and how we got each other, and how we, we jump in there and we make sure. And I was laughing, I was on a group of the folks who I'm building with for Time of Reckoning, and I'm like, this was my week to tap out, to sit down somewhere, and the universe had me taken out. And I was like, the universe was like, puff, puff, give, like on Friday. Like, you know what, you gotta puff, puff, give, you got, and now sometimes that's how it gotta be, right? Because we can't be everywhere, and we gotta sit down. And it is about that radical self-care. So I'm holding both things because this is a marathon for us, and everybody can't be everywhere. And so I'm also hopeful to say we gonna have each other. And we got each other, and we all we got. So it's both things.
Thank you. Thank you. I think this is important right here to have this conversation as well, because we're not allowed to acknowledge our pain. We're so busy fighting the pain. We're so busy fighting for our bodies. And to just say that, like, we're exhausted and in pain, we're often told it's like, you got to keep fighting that good fight, right? That's what you hear. Like, we got to keep fighting. And it's like, how do we keep fighting? How do we, Sam, you said you were worried about the people who are getting up every day and still going to work. Like, how do we cope when we're in the ongoing loop of trauma? We don't even have the PTSD because there's nothing post.
Ain't no P. Ain't no P.
Ain't no P.
There's no P. It's just we here.
Well, yeah, we're here, but and we're there too. I mean, because we're carrying that past as well, right? That past becomes our present on a regular basis. And so we continually live that through ourselves and our ancestors, that racial trauma that is based on who we are and what we look like and who the victim looks like, and all of those other pieces affect us all, even if it's not my cousin, even if it's not my brother. It's like during the trial when the young woman was testifying that that could have been my daddy, that could have been my brother on the ground under that man's knee. But at the same time, unfortunately, we have been at times we have been good at fighting, but we haven't always been good at figuring out what it means to win. At least that's my view, right? And we haven't been allowed, even within our own community, to deal with our trauma, because we're always told we're supposed to be strong all the time. So when things happen, our response sometimes can seem overload. Our response can be either overloaded or not at all. So you got these two different kind of responses, and a more, at least in my book, a more healthy response is somewhere in the middle. But you can't have that when you haven't had a time to understand what that is. Like, as a person asked me after one of my presentations, Mr. Simmons, how does your community heal when it's always under attack?
Right. How do we?
Well, the thing is we have to do both and sometimes we're not always good at both and. It's either all or nothing, and so it's pre-training, in the moment training, and after training, right? And having a full conversation about this. Not just their response, but ours as well, because there's some issues there for us as well in terms of how it affects each other and the community in the long run as well.
How do we stay sane if we know that this is ongoing piece that we're doing pre, post, and during? And as we see now, as one thing happens, like literally, it's like another one. It's not like, oh my God, this happened again. We're just like, another one. Do you know? Like, how do we stay sane while trying to process And so that we don't disconnect in the wrong kinds of ways. Like, I know that we do need to turn TVs off at some point, that we do need to find our quiet spaces, but we want to make sure that we don't detach completely. How do we find that space of moving forward in the midst of?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say, just sort of speaking to the point that I want to make sure that we understand that it's okay to fall apart, right?
Yes.
Because I think in part of us in the staying sane part, what that often translates for Black folks is that we can't fall apart, that we don't get to break down, like we don't get to be in our full humanity. And you know and you know what, it's like, you talked about it, waking up crying, I had to just like weep. I weeped a lot I weeped a lot this week. I've weeped a lot in this season. I've had to just let that trauma and that the stuff that I have felt come out, because you know what? If we don't, it's gonna come out sideways. We can't just walk around and be like, I'm good, I'm good. It's like, well, no, not always,
Yeah.
And that stuff got to come out. And that's a part of the human experience, because if we don't allow, we get to have the full range of our emotions, right? And some of that sometimes is about just like, nah, I ain't good, and it ain't, and that's all, that's actually okay. And I think as Black folks, it's like there's a way that it's like, nah, man, I'm good. No, because that stuff will build up on us and build up, and we not telling folks, and we ain't saying, like, that is hurting in lots of different ways, and it will show up in our body and in our pain, and then addictions and all kind of stuff will just come sideways, and we can't hold on to that stuff. And that's how we will be able to sort of be able to get there, is not trying to act all like we can just handle everything, because we can't.
Yeah.
I mean, why should we? We're gonna have to like rotate out, and tap out, because it's too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd like to just piggyback off of what Dr. Joi said, and thank you for saying that about the importance of being vulnerable and knowing that you're not okay, and being able to say that you're not okay. And so one of the things that I think that helps with, healing and sanity is truth. Telling the truth about what you're experiencing, being able to sit and hold space for other people to tell their truth and share their truth. And so that takes a lot of vulnerability to be able to do that. And what I have found, collectively with us, is that we are so busy, like everyone has said, being strong and resilient and resistant, and all those things that serve us well in some instances. But we're not so good at being vulnerable, and partly because another one and another one and another one, it just keeps happening, and it's been happening since 1619. And so I think that telling the truth about how you feel, there's healing in that. But it's also important to be able to find the right people to be vulnerable with, because we also know we can't just be vulnerable with anybody. Everybody can't hold our truth. Some people can't hold it because they can't hold their own, so they don't have no capacity to hold it. Some people can't hold our truth because maybe they're not, trustworthy enough to hold it. And so now you got to deal with some additional traumas because people can't hold your truth. Some people won't believe your truth. They won't understand it. They can't, they don't have the capacity to hold it. So I encourage people to find folks that really have the capacity to not just hold their truth, but to believe it and to hold that in a sacred container that really allows people to be vulnerable. Because like Dr. Joi said, as a licensed mental health professional, one way that I help people understand, depression and anxiety is with something simple like, depression is anger turned inward. And I believe that anger is a secondary emotion, that if you dig deep enough under the anger, you're going to find grief, you're going to find pain and sadness. And so when we don't deal with our anger and everything that's underneath that anger, then we just turn it in on ourselves, and then we become depressed and anxious and start to experience other kind of mental health issues. So I think truth is important. Being able to release what we're feeling and to be able to be in a safe space to have that support.
Okay. Fear, right? We Black in America, so there's already one level of fear to begin with. COVID, another level. And it feels like we kind of keep compounding these levels, especially for Black men, right? In Minnesota and beyond. How do we navigate through the fear?
Well, like this week, I do two men's groups a week, and then every other week I do a female group, which has been interesting and actually fun, watching the young ladies grow in terms of a little easier been with them because they're a little bit closer to being able to be okay with, they just need somebody to listen to them, right? And then having a man listen to them who ain't trying to do nothing to them is like important to them, which is an unfortunate statement to make it itself. Okay. But with my guys is they're actually doing well considering their ages, because I basically deal with 18 to 40-year-olds, because I deal with that age group specifically because there's some extra trauma that goes along with that group going down in terms of for various reasons. And they feel safe enough to talk about these things, and they feel safe because they're not being judged. But but the other thing is we talk a great deal about what people do and the fear people have of Black men. But the sad part is the fear that Black men have of other Black men, and being able to be honest about that. Right. There's some stuff that's in between some of these crises that we need to be doing so people are not as, sad as this sound, not as taken out by as many crises, and maybe have more of an idea about how to respond and how to have a plan, right? Because if you deny your trauma, you're not going to make no plan. It's like denying you're going to die, so you don't buy no insurance. And we see that in our community all the time, right? You don't buy no insurance, you don't make no plans, and then when it happens, we fall apart, and then we got to do a GoFundMe and all that. And I'm not hating on folks. I'm just being real. When you deny your own trauma and your own pain, you deny your humanity. And folks been trying to do that to us ever since we've been brought here. And unfortunately, in our survival methods, is from the beginning, is we didn't want them to see us sweat, right? And it was necessary. The making, we haven't quite made the transition because they're still trying to make us sweat, right? And so with the men, even with my whole thing when I started this work was, and actually it really starts with you, Stephanie, when we was doing the work down in the basement over there in North Point, right? It's like, it's like what men ain't doing. But the thing is, if you don't allow men to address their trauma, they traumatize themselves and folks close to them. And so being able to be okay with the fact that, or being okay to say, I was traumatized at a certain age, and I'm vulnerable at a certain age, and not and feeling trusted enough that there's not other men laughing at you, there's not other men making comments and those kind of things. It has put them in a position that they are responding as well as you're going to have to this current issue and current trauma that's continuing, and being able to share that with others, and really be there for their children, right? Because male trauma has a tendency to be very selfish, and so allowing them to say, I don't know, and I don't have to be all these things that go along with uh toxic masculinity. And I know I'm kind of going off on a little bit on that, but see, even with toxic masculinity, they don't realize their toxic masculinity comes from them imitating white men. So it's like you trying to imitate what the white man told you you're supposed to be as a man, and then you're trying to do it twice as better than him, and the only thing you're left with is, oh, I have better sex than everybody else, right? And then want to be mad that some of your masculinity is tied on the back of black women. So now that's for another conversation.
We just went left. We went left. Forget.
Yes, yeah. I thought I was doing. I thought I was doing group. Yeah, okay. It's been a long day.
Let's say
Well, like I said, working with Stephanetta used to sit back and laugh at me because I go off on these deep ends just in the middle of eating lunch. So ain't nothing changed. I just got old and pretty. Look at me. Move on. So I'm done.
No, for those who are just tuning in right now, we're doing a mental health check-in right now. Like, it's a lot going on in our communities, particularly the Black community. Another brother, young Black man, killed by police unnecessarily again this past Sunday, Dante Wright. I myself again mentioned, crying tears of pain for a young man that I don't know, because this is collective hurt that we're feeling, and we just really want to get into this and explore what that feels like, acknowledge our pain as a community. As Dr. Joi said earlier, it's okay to fall apart. And join in. So if you have any comments or questions as you're watching, please, drop them in. We will touch on them as we can, and really just continue exploring how we move forward. And I know Sam, he does groups, so we can definitely, he's been leading groups for the past 20 years and getting with his kids and like, look, this is what you need to talk about. But he did go on a tangent. Yes, he will. But it's because he, like all of you all deal in and day out in your work with people who are impacted by trauma daily. So I know I'm bringing you in on this larger conversations, but you're having individual one-on-ones, And
yeah,
so
I'm sorry. I was just thinking about, like, when you was asking about this this question around fear. Yeah. And I was thinking about this young brother Dante, and him getting pulled over and him calling his mother, right?
Because he was scared.
He called his mother, and his mother said, put them on the phone. Put them on the phone so I can tell them about the insurance, right? And let them know, like, you covered. Like, let me just tell them, right? Let me just tell them. So, and I could just only imagine, like, what was going through her mind, and her body, and the fear, and just like, if I can just let them know, like, we got this, and it is 2021, and him like, let me just let them talk to my mama, right? You're a 20-year-old man. Let me let them talk to my mom. And I think about in 1986, 1985, 85 had gotten my life. I'm in the 10th grade, 1986. And, I grew up in East St. Louis, Illinois. And my father, and right next to East St. Louis is Belleville, Illinois. This is racist as it can be. And my father would say, and he was, you know, it was old school, and it was, you know, he was one of the first folks back in the day who had gotten a car phone. Y'all know that big old school car phone that sat, you know, right down. You better not call. This is only if it's an emergency, you know. You don't. But he was like, look, if you get pulled over by the police, if you have to get pulled, don't stop. This is 1986. He's like, don't stop. He said, don't go fast. Just put on your lights. I want you to just go slow, and you drive. You call me, and you just drive home, and you just let them follow you home. But don't you pull over. Y'all, this is 1986. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
This is over 30 something years ago. So how long has this been the instruction, right? Has this been the instruction? So my father was like, don't you pull over. Don't you trust? Like, that's what's being told, right? Like, this is supposed to be folks you're supposed to be able to call on. He's like, don't you pull over. I don't care. You don't you just go real slow, and you just wait until you can get home to safety. But don't you pull over on the side of the road. And it's the same thing. So he's just trying to call his mama, right? And now my 16-year-old niece, right, who has her license, she was going to get. She said, "So, Aunt Joy, what if I have to get pulled over? What am I supposed to do? What do I do? I mean, what you supposed to say? What do you say? You know?" And I'm like, you know, I mean, what are the instructions here? So it's the fear of, like, these are basic things. And it's so random. What is it's respect to oh, don't do this. If you do this, if you say this, if you say yes, sir, if you say no, this is some made up what are you supposed to say?
There is no right answer. Because
Well,
you know, we've seen all of the folks who've not complied, and those who've complied, and those who stayed in the car, and those who said, "Sir, I got a permit. Is it okay if I reach for the gun and show you?" I mean, there are no rules. There is no script. There is, because they change
in uniform.
According to, yeah, they change according to who's stopping you.
Right.
And even the brother who was in uniform.
Right.
Doing all the right stuff.
Hey, everything right.
Right. And, you know, like I say on the radio show sometime, it ain't paranoia when it's true.
That's right. What I'm saying.
That's right.
You know, because, you know, folks, sometimes folks want to talk about, well, you know, why didn't they just do the right thing? And you know, the thing that irritates me the most, well, there's a lot of things that irritate me the most. That's me. But one of the things that irritate me is this whole thing about, you know, one bad cop, right? That one bad cop. And there was a thing I posted about being, you know, in my 60s and thinking about the experiences I've had over these 60 years. I'm not dead, but that don't mean those experiences didn't cut, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, so the cop who pulls me over and tell me, well, why did you pull me over? Because we're not sure this your car. What you mean you're not sure this my car? I got Simmons on my license plate. How's this? How you not sure this is my car? Or the cop who stops me, and it seemed like it was one of the days he was doing his own entertainment, and I still wasn't clear about why he stopped and why he's insulting me and disrespecting me in front of my grandkids, and then want to walk off and say a nice day. Is that one of those few good cops? or the cops I called when a gentleman, well, I shouldn't even call him a gentleman, backed into my car, was trying to get away. I called the police. The police gets to where I'm at, and they come harass me like he was the one who called the police. And each one of those experiences is like a razor cut. And you know how a razor just, you know you've been cut, but it hurts even more when you walk away about, I should have did this and I should have did that, in those kind of things. So does that make that cop one of those good ones? Because I didn't end up, I wasn't a body, and so I think there's a bigger conversation we got to have even over above the bodies. Right, because what you're talking about, Joy, what was being told to you, that's all part of that experience
of dehumanizing us.
Yes, and what I call the racial trauma that we are passing down. Where you got to have this conversation with your kids, no matter what your background, because we've been spinning. It's like, okay, maybe I should live in a different neighborhood. Sometimes that's more dangerous than staying in the hood. When you're talking about being in a different neighborhood, right?
Absolutely.
Especially if they grow up with kids who ain't black, so they don't even know that's not what they're supposed to do.
Right. Because I lived out in Brooklyn Park back in the day when it really wasn't appropriate. Every time I would cross the line, they stopped me to the point where they knew my name. They knew my name. I'm 60-some years old. I still have anxiety and heart palpitations when a police officer roll up behind me.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that part of this piece around trauma. So what do I say? What are some of the things that I say for people? We can't actually control. I think you said there is no script, right? Mm-hmm. So part of what I sort of encourage folks to do is saying, I don't know what kind of things that other folks can do, but what is it that I can control? So what I can control is making sure that my energy bank is full, right? And that I am doing whatever I can do to say, how is it that I can make sure I'm as regulated as I can be? Meaning that how can I make sure that I'm not in a position where I'm going to be as least triggered as possible, right? Because there are lots of things that are I don't know what's going to be going on out here, but am I in a place where I can be, where I'm going to be able to be regulated, where I can be as calm as I can be, because I don't know what they're going to be doing, right? And so, as many things, that's why I said there are only 2 times to practice radical self-care: when you feel like it and when you don't. There's only 2 times, right? When you feel like it and when you don't. Because we just got to get as filled up as possible, because we got to have something to be able to withdraw from. Because otherwise we just going to be out here writing bad checks, y'all. And if we just out here writing bad checks, y'all know what happens. I mean, I'm going to date myself. I used to write checks, you be floating them checks, you know what I mean? When you be like, if I just gone to get, I'm just saying, I'm gone to give me a tray of chicken wings, give me some, they ain't going to, give me some, little, give me a loaf of bread. And then they ain't going to cash that check for it. But, I got some time. Boy, if that check hit, then I'm jacked, right? But then that little $10 check, now it's costing me $30, right?
Yeah.
But right, but then if I can't pay that $30, now it's costing me $50. So the whole point is that if I can go on and make sure I got some in that account, then I'm good. So that's what we have to do, is just every chance that we can get, make sure you're spending time with the people who really fill you up, right? Make sure you're spending your time in your meditation and prayer. Make sure that you're eating well. Make sure you're doing those things as much as you possibly can, so you have something in your bank, right? So when these things are happening, you're not so already on empty. So you have something to be able, and you're not running on fumes, because we can't afford to be out here writing bad checks. Because I know when I'm writing them bad checks, and I'm like, dag, I'm jacked. You know, that's that's the best we can do.
I just want to add to that too, that as I'm listening to this and thinking about ways that we can do this, I think we gave the analogy earlier that, we're essentially like living in a war zone. Even though, we may have a nice car or we got a degree or whatever it is that we got, that we think that we have arrived or that we're now thriving. At any given moment, when we step outside of our houses, and now we don't even got to step outside of our house. If we look at Breonna Taylor,
come on.
But anytime, I'll just say this: anytime we exist and breathe, we're on the battlefield. We're in that war zone, and so when I think about one of the things I think back to. I try not to get too heavy into these theories, but I think it's at least has some value, Maslow's, hierarchy. And we think about what starts at the bottom, with our basic, physiological needs, which is food and shelter and clothing. And then we go up to safety. Do we feel safe? Do we have a place to stay? And do we belong somewhere? Do we have people who, love us? Do we fit in? And when I think about all of that as it relates to Black people in America, for a lot of us, we're just in the phase 1 and 2 at the bottom.
That's right.
We're and if we think about it collectively as people in this country, we certainly don't have a sense of belonging, because I believe that if they could have it their way, they would be, they would do away with all of us, essentially. And so, for people out there who are living in those circumstances, they don't have the food to eat well. They're living on the streets. They're homeless. They don't have family. They don't have any kind of support.
Yep.
What do those people do? And that's tough. And the thing that makes me come back to at least one tiny answer is that you said it earlier, Joi, we all we got.
That's right.
And so we have to build community, and we have to learn how to be in community with each other and cultivate those communities so that we can start to move ourselves up, through those levels of evolution, if you will, according to Maslow. And a lot of us are just at the bottom and still not able to figure out how to pull ourselves out of there. But those of us who are a little higher up, we have to reach back.
Yeah. But let's even talk about how you said Maslow's theory. Like the first one, the base, like we understand we can't get food, shelter, all those other things. Food, even if you live in a food desert, that's something that contributes to that, right? But then the second level of this hierarchy of needs is safety. If you're Black, how do you even get to belonging as a level 3 if we're still stuck in safety mode?
And I think that's part of what Sam was saying, is that we're, that there is some post, there is some P there, because we don't know how to collectively, we don't know how to get out of safety, because we keep living the same trauma and we keep passing it to our kids. And I have a 28-year-old Black man who's 275 pounds, 6'2", very dark skin, and I know every day that he lives and breathes he's not safe, and like literally, what can I do about that? What can I do other than to speak truth to him, to teach him, to prepare him, to pray for him. But at the end of the day, I have no control over his safety. And that's a collective conversation. Like, how do we even get past level 2?
So good. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a whole other conversation. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely want to lift up, for folks who are out there and who are listening. So for the Healing Justice Foundation, if I just want to encourage folks to go, that there are not just the Healing Justice Foundation, but we have a space for people to be able to go for community healing spaces for mutual aid, for people to be able to go to get places to fulfill some of these needs that Catrice is lifting up. And we just want that to be a place for people to be able to be looking for you need in some of these basic needs, that we want it to just be a place where people can easily find, to say, hey, I'm needing something to eat, I'm needing some shelter, I'm needing some places to be able to be held, where folks can tap in. And if you are needing that, to please go there. And if we can't find it, we can try to get you tapped into somebody who can help you out. There's a ton of stuff people are organizing all around the city, because we know, look, all we got, right? And that again, we know we can't provide everything, but we are trying to make sure that people know that, hey, here's where you can find folks, and seeing however we can tap in, and if we can get resources to make sure that that ain't nobody being left out, is what we're trying to do. And so if there are needs, please let us know, and we just trying to make sure that people are not left out.
As we lean in and build on community, right? Thank you for that piece. What other resources, what other places can we look for or lean on right now? Or, can we call Sam and just get, a good conversation?
Absolutely.
No, this is because, it seems always so like we're stuck in that cycle. And sometimes we feel like we're hamsters on this wheel. And it's like, so why don't I just get off the wheel? Because I'm tired.
Yeah.
So where else can we go look? How do we further this conversation in our communities?
Yeah, right on. Yeah, and like I said, just so we're clear, it's not, if you go to the Healing Justice Foundation, what you're going to find is a whole bunch of folks that are doing stuff like all over.
I dropped the link in there, healingjusticefoundation.org, for those who are watching. I put it in the comments. Check that out. And if there's any other resources, as as we're talking, that you want me to drop links in to share to how we continue these conversations, because we know you three are not responsible for everybody's healing. And I just want to thank you for volunteering your time, because this is volunteering your time and your expertise to jump in on this conversation.
It's volunteer.
I got no coins for you, Sam.
We didn't know that part.
Volunteer. Oh my goodness! Let me take my earplugs out.
I'd like to
volunteering right now.
I'd like to share a couple of resources that I'm aware of in the Twin Cities. Of people that I know that if they don't have the resource, they may know how to get the resource.
To connect you to, yes.
And so that would be the Racial Justice Network, led by Nikema Levy-Pounds and her team. Chantel Allen also has Love First. And she's doing some work around that. I know that she has done lots of kind of pop-ups for community folks, where she's, giving away joy bags full of, things that can bring people joy. She's, had some giveaways for shoes for kids. I know that the We Win Institute also did something recently. A book drive, and they had, reading for kids in the park. So those three come to mind right away as they may not be the exact resource that people need, but I'm sure that they could be a connecting resource.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
And we're just going to keep amplifying stuff. And as folks know, we just want to, and we're all connected. We're all in community. And so if folks, are needing something, please just reach out and we will figure out. We don't want folks out there. We really don't, that's
absolutely.
That's the thing.
Now, I know all three of you are called on different times for all sorts of platforms to have conversations, right? And so I'm sorry, this is the time where I bring you back on. It's for another one of these trauma moments. But in your conversations that you're having across communities, across platforms, what's the one thing that you are wishing we talked more about? Or the one question that you wish was asked?
Well,
Sam got 12.
Well, the one for me, which sometimes feels like it's not that popular, or I shouldn't say not that popular, it's uncomfortable, is how this trauma that we experience shows up amongst us internally, right? And because I think there's some real advantages we could have if we had more of these conversations about how the external trauma has affected how we relate to each other.
Yes.
Right. And that's always been a tough one for our community, because the last thing we want to do is sometime to out loud admit that we got this stuff going on, because it's been used against us when we try to have those real hard conversations within the community, and folks outside, they start trying to use them against us and pound us. And when you're a people who's been seen in a negative light and always show up in a negative light in the bigger stream, the last thing you want to do is be seen or contribute to being seen in that negative light. And which I think has been one of the most difficult things for me to deal with, because of thinking about the trauma that I have experienced and continue to experience more actually often from my own folks, right? And and have been shut down by having that conversation, or the conversation gets changed automatically to, why don't we talk about resiliency? No, I ain't trying to talk about that right now. I'm not trying to talk about that right now. And that's why I stay in my basement, because I'm not trying to have that argument with people, because they don't want to be honest about that kind of stuff that we are doing. You know, it's like when I went off my last tangent about the brothers I deal with, and the brothers, when they come to the group, they say, that old man crazy, but he making sense, and they have to check themselves, because I think that there's real improvements that we could have internally, because then people would have at least one safety place to go to combat the craziness that is confronting us every day that we deal with the mainstream society. So that's mine.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, since you did so well at that, Sam, I got to piggyback right on top of it.
Yes. The thing you wish we was talking about. Yes.
So much. I love that so much that Stephanie, you said Catrice probably done put out 3 books since then. Well, just two.
Just 2. Is there another cover I
saw? But I want to share this, and excuse my shameless plug, but it's helpful. Weapons of Whiteness.
Yes, that's the one, right?
Yeah,
that's the one.
And so, to speak to what Sam said, that we have been so indoctrinated and conditioned to use the master's tools against each other and cause harm to each other, that we are in a perpetual cycle of trauma and violence from outside sources, from everyone who's anti-Black, to our own internalized anti-Blackness. We can't win for losing.
Yeah.
And when are we going to sit down and have a conversation about accountability? When are we going to sit down and have a conversation about what accountability and love looks like in the Black community? And how can we do that with as much compassion and grace as possible? Yeah. And so what I have, I'll give a quick example. So, for example, let's say I try to hold someone accountable for a harm that I feel like they've done to me. And so before I even go to hold them accountable, I gotta do all these mental gymnastics on how to present my pain to them in the most delicate way, so that they won't be wounded, because I'm holding them accountable for their wounding me. Right. To me, that is some very complex, psychologically complex stuff. And if I go to this person and I say, hey, you wounded me, and this is how I feel, a lot of times what we're not going to get is Catrice, really? Did I do that? I'm so sorry. How can I fix that? What you mean?
Right.
You know, then it's the anger and the frustration. And so then I vacillate between, I understand that you got all this pain and other trauma going on, but I've just been traumatized too. And so because we don't know how to do that yet, we don't know how to do that effectively yet, the wounds just keep stacking on top of each other.
Right.
And then we just wound each other back and forth, wielding these weapons of whiteness, the ways of white folks. You know, they taught us that. They taught us, you know, how to cause this harm to each other. And so if I could spend, in fact, I'm just going to say this, by the end of 2022, my work with white folks is going to cease, because this work is urgent.
Yes.
This work has to be done. And as many of us as possible need to go on and get in the bunker with Sam and hold these groups and do this work, because we got some huge collective healing that has to happen, or we're never going to get to level 3, 4, and 5.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with Sam. That's what I would focus on.
Okay.
So I just want to lift up, thank you, that there is an opportunity as connected to the work that we're doing with Time of Reckoning for the Black Family Reunion, that where we will be having these conversations during, in partnership with work that we're doing with the organization that Tish Jones leads, True Art Speaks, doing the Sunday dinner as a part of our Time of Reckoning, where there will be opportunities for these private conversations with just Black folks, right? To be able to have these hosted dinners with Black folks in small community conversations, and there will be different pods where it'll be like, hey, maybe we talking with these Black folks who are talking about whatever, like maybe it's about religion, or maybe it's about whatever, about these different places where we have been holding hurts and harms, so we can have our private conversation, because we never get to have these. And how do we get to do this? So that is going to be happening on Sunday, the 23rd of May. And so I'll just make sure that gets out, and that is a start, because we all know that we need to be having that. So yes, one of the conversations that I would also like for us to be able to have is this conversation about Black joy, but in a different way. Not this just like sort of superficial of just like, oh, how do we get to talk about Black joy? No, but I'm talking about like this conversation that has been bubbling up. Y'all know there's been a lot that's been popping off about like our sister Catrice from Black Lives Matter. The folks have come after her about whatever the business is about, like, oh, she buying these houses. They're coming after Stacey Abrams about her and her money and whatever. And I don't know what the particulars are, but this is my thing. Is it that we can't have nothing? Is it? I mean, I just
can't be great.
I like, is the narrative that it's only okay if we just do all the things and just, be like working like all the time, be broke down. This is what the narrative, you need to be broke down. You need to be sick and exhausted. You need to be broke, and you don't need to have nothing. And you just, and then you good. But if you have anything, you just gonna get investigated. I don't know what the business is. I don't know what nobody's financial. I don't know, but nobody's stuff. I don't know people like that, and whatever. If somebody does something wrong, let them be held accountable. I don't know about that. But I just be like, we don't get to be having none. Like, just like, we can't never have nothing. And I don't know if y'all know, like Sonya Renee Taylor, she was like, do we just get to have to just be buried in an unmarked grave and like just be like, is that just what it comes down to? Yeah. So I just don't understand how we just can we have a conversation about like what do we get to do you ever get to rest? Do you get to I just don't understand like what is okay? What is it like particularly whenever you are when you're doing this like public work and like you are in this when is it okay? I just want to know what is it and what are you supposed to be? You just supposed to be broke down? I just don't know what the business is.
That's a whole other.
Look,
I
we
just
need a
want to
part.
know.
We need a
That's
part
the poverty
2
pit
and
Yeah, we
3
need a part
and
2 to
4.
that.
We need a part 2 just on that.
I'm not gonna be broke down, y'all. I'm gonna tell y'all right now. I'm not gonna be broke down. I'm not gonna do it.
Yes.
But see, that's the backside of the conversation that's been given to us by mainstream about how poor we are as Black folks.
I'm not
Because
gonna do it.
and the problem is that some of the things we've done to survive this far are coming back to haunt us.
Yes.
Because we haven't evolved past them. It's like my clients believe everybody Black is poor. And I keep trying to tell them I ain't the only one ain't poor. Okay. So, so that whole thing, and then you have this thing I call reflective trauma. When I see you, I feel bad about me because of what you have.
Yeah.
And that's amongst educated, well-to-do Black folks. We ain't immune to trauma just because we ain't always in the hood. We like to go visit the hood and start stuff up and leave, but we ain't immune to trauma. We ain't. Matter of fact, our trauma shows up unrealistically more than the brother in the hood. I'd rather deal with the brother in the hood because his trauma real.
Mm-hmm.
His trauma real, and his behavior is real. Might not be good for him, but it's real.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because you can say 1 and 1 is 2. Of course, I robbed them. Well, we got to look at some other ways for you to do that, right? But and the brothers say, yeah, Mr. Simmons, you let me know I ain't crazy. I just do crazy stuff, and once they get that, they good.
That's good.
It don't take much. But when I'm
That's
dealing
good.
with all these so-called, I know what we need for Black folks,
Come on.
and all this advocacy stuff. Because the thing is, the loneliest children in the world during the advocate's funeral is his children.
Come on.
Because everybody come up talking about, yeah, I love your daddy and I love your mama, and it's like we didn't get to see them. And my daughter had to pull my shirt tail on that, daddy. And she's my only child. She says, I am your child. Them people is not your child. Okay. And you're going to find time for me or else.
Okay.
So it's like, can't do everything. That's why I'm in the dungeon. With the phone off.
Well, you know what? That's exactly what I was talking about. The weapons that we've learned to use. First of all, we got to learn what the weapons are.
Right.
Come on.
Many of us don't even know the weapons that we're wielding against each other.
Right.
I list 45 of them in the book if anybody's interested in learning what they are.
You coming back on Monday? We don't have a conversation next week. We might just have to get everybody upset real quick. Let's get everybody uncomfortable.
And so once people know the weapon that they're using, they can say, I have been using this weapon against my own people. This is what that weapon looks like. These are the ways that I lay down that weapon. And white folks, let's just keep it real. They're sitting back watching us sword fight each other with their weapons.
Yeah, that's good.
They're winning. And we haven't made it past the second level of Maslow's hierarchy because we're doing the dirty work
for them.
Of white folks.
That's good.
And so, and Joi, to go back to what you were saying, if I were to, think long about it, I could probably, tell you 3 or 4 weapons that the Black folks who are struggling with other Black folks having joy, having whatever they're having, is really just a tool of the master.
Okay.
And they don't even know that they're using it.
Yeah. This supposed to be a half-hour conversation.
Okay.
30 minutes.
Yeah, I thought my stomach said, ain't you past time?
Listen. Listen, but you see how much this is needed, and folks have still got questions, and I'm over here like, ooh, reflective trauma with the weapons of whiteness. This is part 2 right here.
But I love my cousins, and I'm just saying, I'm not gonna be broke down, and I'm not gonna be broke. And what I'm saying is, we all gonna eat, and we
That's
all
right.
gonna come.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
That's
I got
right.
some, you got some, and we gonna come. And we ain't gonna be broke down, y'all. Come on.
Well, somebody has to elevate in order to bring other people up.
Yeah, come
Now,
on.
if you up there and you ain't reaching down and getting nobody, now that's a problem
That's a
too.
problem. That's a problem. We're not gonna do that.
Right.
But I'll be like, come on, y'all. I'll be like, Harry, come on, y'all. Come on. If you want to stay here, I'm gonna let you stay here. But if you want to come, I'm like, come on.
And don't hold nobody back because you scared.
No, come on now. This what time we leaving. Now. Come on. We're playing.
And you know, I'm sorry, Stefanetta.
No,
the other thing is, we got to stop fighting for a seat at white folks' table. Because if we reverse that and we put that energy into building our own tables, then we can invite our own community to be at those tables. But so many of us are chasing after a seat at the white man's table that they don't have time to even think about a community table for Black folks. That's a shift I had to make. And, you know, I get people who say, oh, Catrice, you want to speak here? You want to do that? That's not my table. Why would I come and be on your free virtual event when I can charge a fee and get paid at my own event?
Right.
Why would I do that?
Right.
But the reason I can make that adjustment is because it's not about chasing, you know, the fool's gold. It's not about trying to be in close proximity to white people. It's about trying to be free to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And it's about how I can then use those resources that I gather from doing my work and being free to helping other people get free.
That's real talk. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's it.
And that's part of that's part of the mental health check-in right there, is that we have to place value on ourselves and our resources and what we can do, because not only can we lift ourselves up, we can lift up the people around us.
Guess what? I'm hungry.
Yes, I know it's late. I'm sorry. Thank you.
And my food just showed up.
Okay.
And it came to the dungeon. And I don't like cold
smells
food.
Good, and please don't eat food on the camera. So let me just put a pin in this. I appreciate you all, and you see how we were gonna go on, right? Because I'm looking at the time. I want to thank everyone for joining on this conversation. Dr. Joi Lewis, author, all of y'all's experts, okay? And Sam, do you have a book yet?
No, they keep asking me about a book.
Okay, so next week we're gonna talk about that. So Sam Simmons, licensed addiction and drug counselor, and some other letters behind his name. Catrice Jackson, licensed mental health practitioner, and some other letters behind your name as well. 3 experts in our communities who are here. I'm dropping their links in the comments for you to find them, buy their books, hire them. If you know people, again, even though Catrice, you know, one part, but if y'all know people that are hiring them to come talk and speak and to share their expertise with other communities outside of the Black community, please share that information with them and connect with them, because we want to keep this going. This isn't just a one-parter here on the Spokesman-Recorder, but this is a lifetime of connections and community healing that we have to keep doing and moving forward. So I want to say thank you again. And I am going to, let's see, look, Sam said, hurry up. I hear you, brother. I'm going to close this out. I have to do some Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder sponsorship situations and say this conversation was brought in part by the Minnesota Department of Health. And I'm going to play a video from them and just thank everyone again for tuning in, and bless you all. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you.
For me to get tested so that I can have a graduation this spring is most important to me. For my sport, so that I'll be able to participate and compete.
Because I want to be on stage for my senior year musical and prom and graduation.
This program to get students testing when they're asymptomatic increases the likelihood that we catch some of that very small percentage of students that test positive and eliminate the huge disruption for that co-curricular activity or that school day.
I don't want to be a community spreader, so coming to the Armory, getting a free test has been easy, and it makes sure that I'm staying safe as well as keeping my friends safe.
We want to be back in person, and we need to work together to get to that point.